Welcome to class today. Our lesson for today is going to be what is an asset? Word we hear a lot, probably have some knowledge. If not, we're going to learn some more. Those already know something. We're going to challenge it, expand on that knowledge. So let's get into today's lesson. So I'm just going to ask a couple quick questions to kind of gauge your prior knowledge of what an asset is. So question one. Raise your hand if you ever consider your phone or an asset. Why? Wait for your answers. Question two, raise your hand if you believe an asset is only tangible and why. Question three, raise your hand if you have any experience with asset management. So from so from the answers we kind of gathered, we have a few people that have some experience with assets, some familiarity, and then a few that have no idea, and that is completely fine. We're all in the right place, and we're gonna keep going on with the slides. Our learning goal for today, you guys will be able to define an asset, identify its key characteristics, distinguish assets from non-assets using real world and accounting examples. Why it matters? Assets are the foundations of the accounting equation and essential to understanding financial health. So by the end of today's lesson, my is to help you lead you guys towards defining an asset, distinguishing what is an asset, what is not an asset, and some real world examples of assets in the wild, I guess, if you want to call it that. So we'll continue on. An asset defined. So this is the formal definition of an asset given by GAAP, the generally accepted accounting principles. That's the governing board of accounting, pretty much. So this is how they define an asset. An asset is a resource controlled by an entity as a result of past events and from future, which which and from which future economic benefits are expected to flow. So again, an asset is a resource controlled by an entity as a result of past events and from which future economic benefits are expected to flow. So further broken down, resource, something of value, controlled, ownership or legal right, past event, purchase, gift, or prior transaction, future economic benefit will help generate cash or reduce costs. So that's the textbook definition, I guess the working definition of an asset. So we're gonna further on the next slide break down what that really means. Again, so we have um, another breakdown of what an asset is, a resource, it's controlled, a past event, and this future economic benefit that can be driven off the asset. So definition, something of value, owned or legally managed, transaction or acquisition, that would be a past event, and then generates income or saves costs for future economic benefit. So new to this slide, we have some examples, as you guys are probably wondering. So a resource that would be considered an asset for a company would be their cash. That'd be their cash accounts, money market accounts, their savings accounts, short-term investments, which we is a little further out in our learning experience, but those are some example of resources. Controlled assets, your company vehicle is a good example. As we can see, we got the UPS car. So their fleet of vehicles would be a controlled asset that we for them. So example of a past event, so purchase of inventory, you'd be holding your inventory prior to selling it. So it represents an asset you own because you're gonna generate revenue from the inventory eventually. And then I guess like a receivable. So just say you set a contract where you sent out goods to a company and they promised to sign a contract to pay you, that would be an asset to you. And then rent-free office space would be an asset to you. So there's a future economic benefit for that. Of course, it reduced your costs. And on the next slide, I'm gonna speak about how do assets show up in your real life. How do assets show up in your real life? Your laptop for freelance work will be considered an asset. A prepaid gym membership for your wellness brand, that would be an asset. A savings account for your side hustle will be an asset. Old stocks that were given to you by your grandparents, that would also be considered an asset. Common misconceptions. What is not an asset? Reputation. Reputation is valuable, but not controlled. So wouldn't be considered an asset. Uh, not an asset, not an asset. Future contracts, not yet a past event, so that would not be considered an asset. So if you say you're going to do something in the future and you have a contract, but it hasn't happened, you can't list it as an asset. Your personal belongings, not business related, so it wouldn't be considered an asset for your business. Not all valuable things are assets. On the next slide, I'm gonna do a little storytelling and wrap it up. Real world accounting in action. I can speak for myself. As a senior accountant at Boston University, I was responsible for tracking and reporting over $2.6 billion in assets from buildings, lab equipment, software licenses, and endowment investments. So yeah, that was one of my jobs while I was getting my MBA actually at Boston University. So in that job, I would make sure I would account for the buildings. I would make sure they were recorded properly in the general ledger and ultimately show up in the financial statements. I would do the um make sure I would capitalize the equipment across different schools they had from the medical campus on. So yeah, it's a very important job. It's over a chunk, a big chunk of their value is within the company, lies within their assets that falls on their balance sheet. So it's a very important job. I wasn't the only one doing it, of course. I had a manager, and ultimately the controller that helped with the accounting for the assets out on Boston University. Why it matters. Every day I had asked, does this meet the definition of an asset? Is it controlled by the university? Did it result from a past transaction? Will it provide future economic benefit? Today, to wrap it up in conclusion and to wrap up, you learned the formal definition of asset in financial accounting. You learned how to break down and apply that definition. And lastly, you learn why assets matter in real world accounting decisions. Again, thank you for your attention in this short lesson. Again, we're going to continue on learning more about the accounting equation and probably next class focus on what you owe, which will be your liabilities. Today we focus on kind of more what we own and what we control. So, thank you.